FULLMETAL Alchemist Brotherhood, Episode 3, City of Heresy. This episode starts with the Elric's arrival at Rioli. Edward and Alphonse introduce themselves to the townspeople, seeking answers about the religious broadcasts echoing through the streets. The locals reveal that the voice belongs to Father Cornello, a prophet of the god Leto, who claims to perform miracles such as granting immortality and raising the dead. While the townsfolk marvel at these feats, Edward grows suspicious, questioning the legitimacy of such claims. The brothers witness a public demonstration of Cornello's abilities, where he seemingly performs miraculous acts. However, Ed quickly deduces that these miracles are actually alchemical transmutations. What puzzles the brothers is how Cornello manages to bypass the basic principles and limitations of alchemy, leading them to suspect that the priest possesses the Philosopher's Stone, the very artifact they've been searching for. Inside the church, the brothers meet Rosie, a devout follower of Leto. When Edward dismisses her faith as mere superstition, Rosie passionately defends it, criticizing his lack of belief. Shifting gears, Edward asks Rosie to arrange a meeting with Father Cornello. She agrees, passing the request to the priest's adjutant, Cray. Upon hearing that the FULLMETAL Alchemist is in Rioli, Cornello panics, assuming that the state military has sent Edward to dismantle his operation. Determined to protect his secrets, Cornello orders Cray to eliminate the Elrics. However, the brothers easily overpower Cray and his guards, forcing Cornello to confront them himself. Edward accuses Cornello of using the Philosopher's Stone embedded in his ring to deceive the townsfolk. Cornello denies the claims, attempting to manipulate Rosie into proving her loyalty by attacking Edward. Promising to resurrect her deceased lover if she obeys, Cornello hands her a gun. Driven by grief, Rosie fires at Edward but accidentally knocks off Alphonse's helmet, revealing his empty suit of armor. Both Rosie and Cornello are stunned by the sight of Alphonse's hollow body. In desperation, Cornello unleashes a chimera powered by the stone to attack Edward, showcasing his ability to perform alchemy without a circle, and fights the creature. However, his automail limbs prove impervious to the chimera's claws and teeth. Realizing Edward's automail and Alphonse's soul binding are the results of a failed human transmutation, Cornello mocks their attempt to play God. Edward counters by warning Rosie against following a path that could lead to similar suffering. The battle escalates, but the brothers retreat to the church's upper levels with Rosie. There, Alphonse explains their tragic story. An attempt to bring their mother back to life had resulted in a horrifying failure, costing them dearly. He reveals the truth they've come to accept: it is impossible to bring someone back from the dead. Despite their warnings, Rosie clings to her belief that Cornello's power might succeed where they had failed. Cornello eventually tracks Edward to the broadcast room, where the young alchemist casually waits. Edward questions Cornello's motives, asking why someone with the stone's power would build a false religion. Cornello smugly reveals his grand plan: to create an army of fanatical followers who fear neither death nor consequence, allowing him to overthrow the government and seize control of the country. Unbeknownst to him, Edward had secretly turned on the broadcast microphone, transmitting Cornello's confession to the entire town. Realizing his scheme has been exposed, Cornello lashes out, attempting another attack with the Philosopher's Stone. However, the alchemy backfires, mutating him grotesquely as the stone's power rebounds uncontrollably. Edward subdues the mutated Cornello, demanding the stone. To his dismay, the stone crumbles into dust, revealing it to be a counterfeit. After the chaos subsides, Edward reunites with Alphonse outside the church and recounts what transpired inside. Before they can leave, Rosie appears, holding a gun and demanding the Philosopher's Stone. She accuses Edward of lying about its destruction, believing he wants to keep it for himself to resurrect his mother. Calmly, Edward reiterates that the dead cannot be brought back, no matter how much one wishes for it. His words shatter Rosie's fragile hope, and she collapses, overwhelmed by despair. Tearfully, she questions how she can continue living when even her last glimmer of hope is gone. Edward offers no easy answers, telling her that it's something she must decide for herself. He encourages her, pointing out that with her own two legs, she has the strength to move forward. Meanwhile, the furious townspeople of Rioli, incensed by Cornello's deceit, march on the church, demanding accountability. Cornello, realizing his facade has completely unraveled, flees to his inner sanctum in desperation. There, he encounters Lust and Gluttony, who chastise him for allowing his carefully crafted scheme to crumble so easily. Lust coldly reveals that they never truly cared for his ambitions, having only provided him with the fake philosopher's stone to sow chaos in the region as part of a greater plan. Enraged at their betrayal, Cornello lunges at Lust in a final act of defiance. However, his effort is futile. Lust effortlessly dispatches him, extending her razor-sharp fingernails to pierce his skull, killing him instantly. As his lifeless body collapses, Gluttony gleefully devours the remains, much to Lust's indifference. She sighs, lamenting that their father will not be pleased with how events have unfolded, but declares that their mission in Rioli has concluded. The brothers leave Rioli behind, with Edward reflecting on their encounter with Cornello and the harsh truths they've once again had to confront. Though the philosopher's stone turned out to be a fake, their resolve to find the real one and restore what they've lost remains as strong as ever. Episode 4. An Alchemist's Anguish. Now, hold yourselves, because here comes the most heart-wrenching part of Full Metal Alchemist. This is even considered as one of the darkest episodes in the entire anime history. The episode begins in Central City, where Brigadier General Basgrand, a state alchemist known as the Iron Blood Alchemist, is walking alone at night. He is suddenly confronted by a man with an X-shaped scar on his forehead. Despite putting up a strong fight, Grand is killed by the scarred man using a mysterious alchemical ability. Edward and Alphonse arrive in East City to meet Colonel Mustang and talk about the events in Rioli. They wonder how Cornello was able to create a chimera despite not being an alchemist. This makes them curious about chimera research and whether it could help restore their bodies. Mustang introduces them to Sho Tucker, a state alchemist who specializes in chimera alchemy. Tucker became a state alchemist 2 years ago by creating a talking chimera. Mustang mentions that the chimera only said, "I want to die," before dying shortly after. Ed explains his goals to Tucker, who is impressed by Ed's survival of human transmutation and his ability to bind a soul. Tucker gives the brothers access to his library, filled with books about bioalchemy. While Ed studies, Al spends time with Tucker's daughter, Nina, and their dog, Alexander. Al eventually convinces Ed to join them, and they all play together. Unable to find the information they need, the brothers decide to come back the next day. As they leave, Second Lieutenant Gene Havoc tells Tucker that his annual state alchemist assessment is approaching. Tucker explains to Nina that state alchemists must present their research results every year to continue receiving funding. He admits his last report wasn't well received, so this is his final chance to keep his position. Nina remains optimistic about her father, but Tucker is visibly worried. The next day, the brothers return to Tucker's house to continue their research. Nina tells them how lonely she's been because her father is always working. This reminds Ed and Al of their own father's absence, so they decide to spend time with Nina again. Meanwhile, Tucker struggles to produce something impressive for his upcoming assessment. In Central City, Lieutenant Colonel Mays Hughes is investigating the murders of state alchemists with Major Armstrong. Armstrong suggests the killer may be targeting them for serving the government rather than the people. They receive a report about a man matching the killer's description being seen at the Central train station, leading them to suspect the murderer has left the city. At the Tucker home, Sho tells Ed and Al about his struggles before becoming a state alchemist. He recalls being so poor that his wife left him and admits he would do anything to avoid going back to that life. When Nina comforts him, Sho promises to spend the next day playing with her, and Nina happily agrees. However, when the brothers return the following day, the house is eerily quiet. In a back room, they find Sho proudly presenting a new creation, a talking chimera. He demonstrates the chimera's ability to speak by making it say Edward. But when the creature calls Ed Big Brother, without being prompted, Ed freezes in horror. He questions Sho about the timeline of his state certification and his wife's disappearance, to which Sho answers both happened 2 years ago. Ed then demands to know where Nina and Alexander are. Sho nonchalantly admits the truth: he fused Nina and Alexander to create the chimera, just like he had fused his wife to create his first talking chimera. Outraged, Ed attacks Sho, furious at how he has used alchemy to experiment on innocent lives. Sho defends himself, claiming Ed is no different since he performed human transmutation on Alphonse. These words push Ed into a fit of rage, and he begins mercilessly beating Sho with his automail arm until Il intervenes to stop him. Al restrains his brother, who is overcome with grief and guilt. Turning to the chimera, Al tearfully apologizes to Nina, knowing they cannot undo the horrifying transformation her father inflicted upon her. The brothers report the incident to East City headquarters, where Ed speaks with Colonel Mustang. Ed admits that, as a state alchemist, he will likely witness more cruelty and may even be forced to commit terrible acts as part of the military. Still, he vows to continue his journey toward his goal. But Ed breaks down, crying that despite his skills and title, he couldn't save one little girl. Meanwhile, the scarred man arrives at the Tucker house, where Sho and Nina are under house arrest. He confronts Sho, condemning him for defying God by abusing alchemy. Placing his hand on Sho's face, the scarred man uses his mysterious power to kill him, destroying his body from within. He then turns to Nina, apologizing for what was done to her. With the same power, he ends her suffering, asking her to find peace. As the scarred man leaves the house, he prays for God to take care of the two souls he has sent to the afterlife. Removing his sunglasses, he reveals his red eyes before disappearing into the night.